Welcome to another edition of Motivational Sundays with Kevin and Friends. This show was originally created from one of the more than 300 quotes that I created for the contents of my books. Curious, I was always wondering how one quote landed on another person. Were they just words that landed on a page, or were there a conversation that needs to be had? I got together with a couple of my friends, Miss Larnez, Christopher, and Gilda James, Manuel. Happy holidays, Emmanuel. All right. Denise, Naheem, Chris Everett, and David. And was just wondering, were these words, or were there a conversation to be had based on our perspectives of interpretation? This show is brought to you by RMK Productions and the 10 United Podcast Network. Our mission is using the power of our voice to uplift, inspire, and share stories and experiences and perspectives using the framework of teaching, learning, and modeling. Our purpose is hope. We meet every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And today's quote, this is heavy. Naheem brought it to us today. It says, nonviolence is not inaction. It is not discussion. It is not for the timid or weak. Nonviolence is hard work. It is the willingness to sacrifice. It is the patience to win. Now, that's a little heavy for some of you guys that haven't been to the gym this morning. A little thinking right there. So, Larnez always says she didn't want to be the first. And normally know what happens when you're in class. You say you don't want to be the first. Get this first. Okay? So, Larnez, I honor your wish because I'm afraid of you. And I'm going to forego this to Mr. Christopher James. Ooh, didn't see that coming. That was boomerang.
That was a very well placed right hook. I didn't see it coming.
Well, that's okay, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna hear Larnez. We're gonna hear Larnez next because we only have a 25-30-minute show, so we're gonna get her up next. All right, Chris, how does this land on you?
After commenting on your expert boxing skills, where this lands on me, the first thing I thought of was a expression that my grandmother used to have is I can't recall the exact wording, but it's basically her prayer to keep her from hitting you. Okay, because what you've just done, whatever it was so vile, so bad. She just has to hit you, but Lord, give me strength not to hit this child. Basically, the whole concept of nonviolence is that, okay, I'm basically placed in a situation which almost requires a reaction from me, but I will make sure that that reaction is not of a violent type or not a violent reaction. And that is hard. That is, we had in the Navy, suffer not the fool to cause you to become one. In other words, something happens and your first reaction is to hit it or punch it or act violently. And when you suppress that, yeah, that's hard work for some people. And I'm not saying everybody, but personally, for me and my grandma, sometimes restraining yourself from acting violently can be a chore, but it does have very good outcomes, very good fruit if you can restrain yourself.
Yes. And we've all have learned the power of nonviolent action because it's part of our history books. Thanks to Brother Martin Luther King. We have learned the power of that, where my grandmother used to say, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words won't hurt you. Sometimes you have to duck when she says that, but she did say it. Larnez, how does this quote land on you? And thank you, Christopher, for allowing me to set that up the way that I did. I'm in a good mood today. I was just looking for a little humor. I love beautiful people smile. I love my family here. All right. Miss Larnez, how you doing? How does this land on you?
hold on, hold on. You never skip Gilda. Like, what's going on? Christopher is a part of Gilda.
You know something? It's because when Gilda speaks, the whole world listens. I just want to prepare the world because the world's not ready for Gilda. I got to get the world ready for Gilda because she's up next. All right, go ahead.
um, Nonviolence. So in my discipline, we have to learn crisis intervention. And within learning these techniques, when people are attacking you and you're restraining them, you also have to talk to them and be patient enough and have the empathy to kind of guide them through while you're trying to stop them from hurting themselves, right? So this quote, nonviolence, is definitely hard work, but it's even harder work when you see someone else struggling with it because it does speak volumes. And it's promoted to lash out. It's promoted to, you know what? No, we're not going to talk about it. Let's just do it. I'm tired of talking. I'm fed up, right? But you get so many more bees with honey than doo-doo. And and when I look at this quote, patience comes with maturity, comes with you bumping your head to the white meat a few times because it's our natural reaction to lash out. It's just if somebody punches me in the face, the first time I got punched in the face, it was, that was my natural reaction. But several years of training, when somebody swings, I might eat that, but I'm definitely not going to react that way, right? Because I know me showing my force to you and how strong I am is not going to make my information or what I'm trying to do for you or what I'm trying to show you tangible. You're not going to remember it because you're used to somebody just lashing back at you, right? But when somebody slows down and they don't show the same energy of aggression and violence, it makes you slow down and look at yourself like, wait, why is this so different? So sacrifice and patience are virtues that are definitely hard to maintain in your life because of our habits, but nonviolence is always the way to get through.
All right.
That's how it hit me.
And I agree with you. Hopefully that those of you that are listening that thought you were watching an audition tape for the new color purple, you nailed it. I will tell you, you got the part. Oprah, thank God you can't come back because you've just been replaced. But nonviolence is an emotion. And I appreciate the way that you profoundly committed to every word that you said right there. And so with that said, okay, we're talking about higher learning. We're going to go to Gilda and see how that lands on her.
Nonviolent. You got to have a lot of patience, just like Renee says, a lot of patience. And for me, over the years, I try to walk away from it.
Yeah.
That's the best way I handle it. Just walk away if you can. And just don't let it get to you. That's how I deal with it.
See, I told you she's going to have some powerful words. Short and sweet. All right.
Short and sweet.
Now
I
know this quote because when you talk about nonviolence, is not inaction. It is not discussion. It is not for the timid or weak. Nonviolence is hard work. It is the willingness to sacrifice. It is the patience to win. That's today's quote. And Denise Lopes is a person of spoken word. And I know someplace in your book, the only book that I've read that you've written, and I'll talk about your new book later on. You had something that pertains to this in one of your poems. You're talking about this. So Denise, if one person can speak to this, and you speak from experience, and I know that, I mean, if you want to recite one of yours that connects to it, I'm fine with that. We're waiting for that show one day that you do it. But how does this quote land on you?
Ooh, this quote is heavy. And like Gilda said, walk away. I always do that because at my job, I have to speak up. So I have a thing I say, God, take care of this, because if I do, I'm going to jail. So I just I think that was the quote Christopher was thinking about. I have to be patient. I keep saying that to me. I've walked out of a few meetings because if I stayed, I'm just gonna punch somebody. So I've been practiced that and patient, like the Ness said. Sometimes you have to have patience because some people they talk out of their behind because they don't have the facts. And for me, especially when I'm advocating for my students, when I want them to have equal opportunity as everybody else, that's my quote. And I keep writing on the notebook that I have, God, take care of this, because if I do, I'm going to jail. So it's been something that I've been practicing, not lashing out at people, not being unprofessional. So before I become really ghetto and have shit, I just walk away and say my prayer while I do it.
And that comes from a serious message coming from a strong Black woman. When she gets to the point that she says, I got to check myself. Otherwise, if I stay here any longer, I'm going to jail. That's deep. My grandfather used to always say, "It's a better good run than a bad stand."
Yep.
I think it's translated the same way. Um, thank you for that share. I can't wait to see your next book. If those of you that have not Googled Denise Lopes by at any time during the course of this show, she has a couple books that are on Amazon. You have to read her spoken words. She is deep, and it
Thank
touches.
you.
Manuel, all right, our Stephen Hawkins. How you doing, brother?
Pretty good.
How does
At the
this quote
office.
land on you, sir?
It's a very hard one for me because I actually, again, I think the first lens I see the world through is like martial arts, and believe it or not, I think I discovered um, Taoism. I think when I was like between 9 and 11, and the concept of like non-action was very difficult for me at that point, and it ended up being kind of like a center of like trying to understand what that meant, right? And as I grew up and like learned about like Martin Luther King, Gandhi, I started to really understand it as a theory and concept, but also personally, in terms of my practice, it's still the hardest thing to put into practice for me, even though, and believe it or not, I feel like I kind of like really pursued a kind of like really self-understanding just so I can understand really the limits of it, right? Because if you're not capable, then you'll resort to violence, right? You'll resort to actions that are, whatever actions that are necessary for you to defend yourself. But the more you develop yourself, the more you develop your own confidence, the more you're able to practice non-action, non-violence, right? And it's really a sign of like tremendous confidence. It's a very difficult practice personally for me still. So I really respect people who are capable of holding on to that at heart. But I really do feel like I've been thinking about that for a very, very long time, and I still don't feel like I'm even remotely where I would hope to be in terms of that kind of like poise and confidence. So it's a good reminder for me today. Sure.
Thank you. And having self-control is a discussion you have with your heart. And I think that every reaction we have, it starts, everyone thinks it comes from the head, but it comes from a heart before it gets to the head. And then it comes back to the heart, and then the heart and the head has a conversation. For those of you that are not,
well, technically, it starts with the reticular activating function.
all right. Let me go ahead and do my part. I appreciate that. When I originally got the quote from Naheem, I was preparing a speech for January 6th in Upper Marion that talked to 6 through 8, 9 to 12 about Martin Luther King. And they gave me two emotions that they wanted me to talk about: courage and difference. But as of yesterday, you guys know every morning I wake up the first thing and I write down the first thought. I don't know if any of you guys remember the thought that I wrote. And I said, sometimes you can't take the criminal out of the crime. I don't know why I thought about it, but every time I sit there and I put out a quote, I run into someone or have a discussion with someone the quote happens to land on. And I'm going, why is God connecting me, or why is the universe connecting me to conversations in my head that are first thought? 16-year-old girl was battling. She had not talked to her parents. At her school, a 16-year-old Asian American young man committed suicide. When I asked her if they knew why, he had been bullied. He was facing this suspension based on a conversation he had that was interpreted to be racist. And instead of facing the consequences, the young man took his own life. Every year I talk about mental health, especially amongst melanated men. Suicide rate goes up sky high during this time of the year. Ask me why? I don't think anyone has one single answer. But when you talk about the non-violence as inaction, our inaction sometimes is failure to communicate or talk about our differences or what we're going through. And that's the part that is not a discussion. You have these conversations with yourself, and sometimes you're not listening to what's right, and you're trying to escape your own reality. All right, and I say this all the time: your imagination is not your reality. What you face with every single day and how you deal with life, that's your reality. You know, the third part of this, when it says it is not for the timid or weak, sometimes we don't identify our own strengths, and we give way to the lesser part of ourselves, and we sacrifice our own humanity, our own self-image, our bodies, our life, to powers that don't even know that we're giving them powers. You know, in order to have self-control, in order to take a position, in order to speak up, courage is a Latin word for an emotions from speaking from the heart. It is hard work to express to someone, like we do on this show. We end the show and we say how much we love you and whatever. It's hard for one man to say, I love you, and hug another man and not feel a certain kind of way. It's hard for us as men to come to our women and say that we're having trouble dealing or coping with, but it's a discussion that needs to be had. To have the willingness to sacrifice your own heart and your thoughts and allow yourself to be vulnerable is give it time. And that's what the last part, it says patience will win. Give it time. And if you get enough people that are listening, you get enough people that care, humanity will turn an emotional profit that has a return on its investment twofold. So that's the way the quote lands on me. So with that said, I want to thank everyone that is tuned in, that tunes in every single week. We meet here every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. There's a link. If you go to our YouTube page, RMK Productions and Network, you can subscribe and follow, and you could be a guest on this show too. We're probably one of the few podcasts that says, hey, come and join us as long as you're positive. We don't do drama. I want to thank my co-hosts, Larnez, Christopher, and Gilda James, the perfect example of what a couple should look like and what it feels like. You always see them smiling. They always feel like they're touching. I want to thank my most talented and one of my most talented friends, Denise Lopes, educator, author, poet, spoken word. All right. queen of dancing. I can't remember the kind of dance she does, but she is the queen of it. Are brilliant. He's above a rocket scientist. He is a gift to this world. Emmanuel, I want to thank you for joining us. And me, Kevin McLemore, I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in every single week and making this show the show that it's been and that it's going to be. And each week we try to do a little bit better. So with that said, my grandfather always says that education is not designed to make you comfortable. It's designed to make you think. And when you get to a point in life that you can help someone, it is your duty to do so. Reach one, teach one. And with that said, we're out.